Hello everyone. In today's video we will be discussing one of my personal favorite machines, the t-34-85. And this particular model, the d-5t, which uses a modified version of the 52K anti-aircraft gun. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about the tank first, huh? Now, this Soviet machine is available right out of the box, assuming you play for the correct faction. And this would be the recently released Battle of Berlin campaign, which is now in open beta. Now this iconic machine, my goodness, is a 1943 retooling, basically, of the original t-34-85. Now this machine that you see in the Battle of Berlin campaign, it wasn't built until somewhere in 1944, but you guys know I'm an idiot, so I don't remember the exact date. And the successor, the t-34-85 ZIS, that took its place. Now let's talk about the armor on the t-34-85. Let's talk about the armor. It has 45 millimeters all around the hull, which doesn't sound like a lot. The turret armor on this machine is about 54 millimeters around the turret. Yeah, it also isn't a lot, but this is why there is a gun mantlet protecting the face of this machine, or rather the face of the turret. Now this sloped front armor can be penetrated by the Panzer IV's 75 millimeter. Actually rather easily, but most people unfortunately assume that the driver's hatch on this machine is a weak point because it stands out. But that's just not the case. That driver's hatch is made out of stellinium. And in case you all didn't know, stellinium was a top secret World War II Soviet technology that they didn't use it on a lot of their tanks. They only used it on certain sections, you know, like a driver's hatch, you know, something that those silly fascists would assume would be a weak point. But no, the driver's hatch on the t-34-85 is made of stellinium, so do not shoot it. Ever. The side and rear armor is still 45 degrees, but it is a little bit less angled, which isn't a too horrible of a proposition so long as you don't get flanked. As long as people don't get around to your less angled side armor, they will not penetrate it as easily. Avoid allowing infantry, tanks, anything, even just one man with a stick of dynamite, do not let them to the side of your vehicle. The armor's on the front. The only protection that you really have against the Germans in this machine is to your front. And the angles of the armor, take into consideration the angles. So speaking of the angles, the upper front plate of the t-34-85, its effective thickness, again 45 millimeters thick, but head on it should be around 87, and the lower glacis, that part that angles back towards the vehicle on the bottom side of the face, is about 77. It's fairly similar, but keep in mind that the lower glacis is a weak point. But the magic of the t-34-85 armor obviously is the angling. It is the angling, but you have to be mindful of where your armor is in relation to the enemy gun. Those Panzer IVs do have a powerful gun. Their turret doesn't turn very fast, and good German tankers will engage you from a distance. But let's move on to the armor on the turret. It will, or rather it can, let you down in this machine. The turret armor, if you would like to call them the cheeks, so if you're looking at the turret, the cheeks outside of the gun mantlet are that thin 54 millimeter armor plating. The mantlet overlaps the turret armor, which is behind it, but outside of the mantlet, that armor is very thin. We call them the turret cheeks. The Panzer IVs can easily punch through those turret cheeks, especially if your turret is angled either direction. They just have to aim at the opposing cheek, right, that is more flat on and more visible, and they will kill your turret crew. They will destroy your tank if you show them your cheeks. Another weak spot, unfortunately, on the t-34-85, This was a compromise that Soviet engineers had to make to fit this massive 85mm anti-aircraft gun into this enlarged turret, was that the turret had to be raised from the T-34 hull. So it left a turret, a very large turret ring underneath the turret itself, which is very thin and easily penetrated. In fact, I would consider this, because it is always flat on, no matter which direction the turret is facing, that turret neck, if you want to call it a neck, it is a turret ring, is exposed, and you can easily punch through that armor with almost anything. Let's move on and talk about the engine. Now, as we all know, the T-34-85 is a modification of the original T-34, where they basically just took a mighty big gun and a mighty big turret, and they just put it atop a T-34 chassis. But they also upgraded the engine. They didn't just slap it on there. This thing has 425 horsepower. Now, I don't know if y'all know what horsepower is, but that's a lot of horsies. This thing has a top speed of 54 kilometers an hour. And I know I'm just a dumb American, but I'm guessing, or at least I'm assuming, that is roughly 30, I don't know, between 30 and 35 miles an hour for all you dumb Americans out there. About 35 miles an hour, which is a hell of a lot faster than the BT-7 that we see in the Moscow campaign. Which is hilarious when you think about it, because the BT-7 is the literal race car of Moscow. It is very mobile. Use your mobility as if you are driving the BT-7 in Moscow. But the main difference between this machine and the BT-7 is this massive 85mm d-5t, which is a modification of the 52K anti-aircraft cannon. This thing fires armor-piercing high explosive. It's just a hell of a round, let me tell you. It's just a hell of a round. This APHE has roughly 148 millimeters of penetration, but that's at 10 meters. More realistically, you'll be engaging, at least 100 meters out. So account for that. It'll be slightly less, and also you will have to account for the angles of the armor that you're fighting against, right? So this 85 millimeter gun is more than enough to penetrate the Panzer IV's frontal armor. It has roughly 73 grams of explosive mass. Remember, we're talking about that dynamite inside a slab of metal, and 73 grams doesn't sound like a lot, but it is enough once the shell is inside the machine to detonate that slab of metal and turn it into shrapnel. And that is pretty evident, because if you take this T-34-85 out, you will quickly find that it easily one-shots Panzer IVs. It easily one-shots Panzer IVs because, unfortunately for German players, the fighting compartment of the Panzers, and one of the reasons why Germany decided to move on to designs like the Panther, just one decent armor-piercing high explosive in the middle of a fighting compartment in a Panzer IV will kill everyone inside. Guarantee it. But when fighting a Panther, as we were saying, the reasons the Germans designed the Panther was to counter that 85 millimeter gun. You will not go through the frontal armor of a Panther. You will have to flank this machine. Trust me. The Panther, that's the reason the Panther comes along later in the campaign in Berlin, is because the Panther was the answer to the T-34-85, correct? Now let's talk about the high explosive shell. Now we talked about the 73 grams. Let's talk about the soda pop here. And I like to call high explosive soda pop because I don't really like thinking too much about what this is capable of doing to people. The high explosive shell of the T-34-85 is very powerful. Considering the 85 millimeter is currently the largest caliber shell that you can fire in any campaign in Enlisted. This is, if you're looking for the largest pop, the largest high explosive, the biggest bang for your buck, guess what? You can get it at level 1 in Berlin, fighting for the correct faction. Right, so the high explosive on the 85, you can easily, my goodness, you can get anywhere from 10, 15, 20, hell, 30 kills. You know, in some games, 30 kills is enough for, what do they call, a tactical nuke. And thank goodness we don't have the capability of getting tactical nukes in this game. Because all you have to do is literally point this 85mm monster loaded with high explosive, just anywhere near an objective, really, just anywhere near an objective, and you'll get so many kills that you won't know what to do with yourself. It is a lot of fun. My goodness, it is fun shooting them Germans with this 85mm. But, you know, in between reloads, the big drawback of a large caliber, high explosive anti-infantry killing mother of a cannon, you know, in between shots while your loader is cursing in Russian, trying to get that piece of loaded back in the cannon breech, you know, the next shell, you have to rely. Oh yeah, you guys guessed it. You see that little 63 rounds at the bottom right of the screen, that little... Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this followed us all the way from Moscow. Oh, yep, that's the same DT machine gun you'll find on the absolute first Moscow machine, the T-60. And even that T-26, oh my goodness. Yep, you remember those crap machine guns from the Moscow campaign? Yeah, that little 63 round mag. She's back, boys and girls, she's back. But, you know, let's just try and stay positive, and let's talk about this. This little 63 round mag can be annoying, but it does have decent damage and a pretty high fire rate, so you can do work with it in between the reloads on your 85mm. So this DT machine gun can easily take care of enemies. Right? You can easily just keep on mowing them down, waiting for your high explosive to reload so that you can lay a little more hurt down with the main cannon. But, you know, this DT machine gun happens to be coaxially mounted, which means it is in line with the turret, right? And the turret traverse speed on the t-34-85, oh, my goodness, it's about 20 degrees per second, which is... amazing compared to the Panzer IV's 5 degrees. It's almost like those silly Germans are in there cranking the Panzer IVJ's turret by hand. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird how it's almost like they're in there cranking it by hand, just cursing in Deutsch? But the best tactic you can possibly use in this T-34-85 is to just angle your armor, right? So those Panzer IVs cannot penetrate through you frontally. And remember, drive it like the BT-7. Keep moving, avoid those explosive packs. Hell, even keep an eye out for players with Panzerfausts, because those will ruin your day. They will ruin your day. Just keep moving. Use the mobility of this machine to your advantage, because your weak points, such as the turret ring, your cheeks, your side armor, are only hittable if you are stationary. Yeah? If you sit still, they will shoot you. And if you sit still long enough, they will figure out where to shoot you. So stay moving, keep that secret Soviet stellinium a secret, and don't let the Germans figure out where that turret neck is. Okay, so in a nutshell, the T-34-85 is one of the strongest vehicles in the game, hands down, let alone one that you unlock immediately out of the gate. It outclasses the Panzer IVJ in every single aspect, and that goes without saying. That goes without saying. You will love this tank if you are a decent tanker, and that's why you're watching this video and why you've made it this far, is because you want to become a decent tanker. Do yourself a favor, load up this tank, and take the advice from this video to heart. Use your mobility. Don't rely on your armor. You know that you have armor, but remember that it is the angling, it is your speed, it is your knowledge of how to use the machine that will make German players cry on the forums and the Discord about how overpowered this machine is. And trust me, it's not overpowered She's just an amazing tank. That's why they made so damn many of them, right? I hope you all took something from this, and I hope to see a lot more T-34-85s in Berlin moving. I want to see them crush those Panzer IVs until Darkflow is forced to make the Panzer IV-H the baseline tank for Germany. Yeah? Make me proud. 7 out.